Hey, what's up? This is Dr. Taylor Krick, host of the Autoimmune Doc podcast. And on this YouTube channel, I review scientific papers from the peer-reviewed scientific literature, confirming and supporting some of the things that we talk about on the podcast. So things with autoimmunity, things with chronic and complex diseases. And again, there's a lot of scientific literature that supports the things that I talk about or the things that we do or just even what's coming out right now. So today's is a fascinating paper. It's fairly short, but it's from 2019 in the Journal of Neuroinflammation. And it's called Antibiotics, the Gut Microbiota, and Alzheimer's disease. So we're talking about the relationship between the microbiome of the gut and how antibiotics affect it and the implications for that for Alzheimer's. So again, just kind of a cool paper just to talk about as far as risk factors and like why gut health matters. And Alzheimer's is obviously just such a hot topic, very debilitating. My grandmother passed earlier this year from Alzheimer's and, had been kind of gone for I don't know how many years before that, but a huge just burden on the family. Like she was actually very like cheerful and nice, which is pleasant because a lot of people get angry and mean. But it's a tremendous burden on the caretakers, and it's growing rapidly. So obviously a hot topic, the number one fear of our adult population, more so than cancer. So Alzheimer's disease is a neurodegenerative disease whose various pathophysiological aspects are still being investigated. Recently, it has been hypothesized that Alzheimer's may be associated with the dysbiosis of microbes in the intestine. So dysbiosis means an imbalance of good and bad bacteria. In fact, the intestinal flora is able to influence the activity of the brain and cause its dysfunctions. That's really important. Given the growing interest in this topic, the purpose of this review is to analyze the role of antibiotics in relation to the gut microbiota and Alzheimer's disease. In the first part of this review, we briefly review the role of the microbiome in the brain and the various theories supporting the hypothesis that dysbiosis could be associated with Alzheimer's pathophysiology. In the second part, we analyze the possible role of antibiotics in these events. Antibiotics are normally used to remove or prevent bacterial colonization in the human body without targeting specific types of bacteria. As a result, broad-spectrum antibiotics can greatly affect the composition of the gut microbiota, reduce its biodiversity, and delay colonization for a long period after administration. Thus, the actions of antibiotics in Alzheimer's disease could be wide and even opposite depending on the type of antibiotic and on the specific role of the microbiome in Alzheimer's disease pathogenesis. And I think that what that's saying is that, hey, this could play a role, but there's a lot of variables. So what was your microbiome like before? Which antibiotic did you take? What was it for? Of course, there's a lot of variables. Alterations of the gut microbiota can induce changes in brain activity, which raise the possibility of therapeutic manipulation of the microbiome in Alzheimer's and other neurological disorders. And on this channel, I review studies going through anxiety, depression, myriad of different things with the microbiome associated with them and how altering the microbiome can make alterations in the brain. Clinically, it's a for sure thing. We see it all the time that we make alterations in the microbiome, and it makes alterations in the brain. I'm not sure that the clinical trials do support that, but it's very, very, very hard to study, especially cognitive function, because it's a little bit subjective. And it's hard to study like, hey, let me give 10 people this probiotic and see if their anxiety reduces. It's like I could give 10 people a sugar pill and their anxiety may reduce. So there's a lot of different variables. So it's a hard thing to study. But again, clinically, we see it all the time. I also see it go the other way. People take probiotics and they get crazy anxiety or they get, flares of different things. So it can go both ways. This field of research is currently undergoing great development, but therapeutic applications are still far away. meaning like pharmaceutical probably, but whether therapeutic manipulation could be achieved using antibiotics is still not known. Yeah, so let's look at this. So, introduction, it just talks about Alzheimer's. What is Alzheimer's? What are some of the most common characteristics? Amyloid plaques, neurofibrillary tangles, and yeah, I'm not going to go into a lot of that. Recently, it has been hypothesized that Alzheimer's disease may be associated with a dysbiosis of microbes in the intestine. This hypothesis is linked to the fact that the intestinal flora is able to influence the activity of the brain and cause its dysfunctions. Growing evidence in this field led to the definition of the term microbiota gut-brain axis. The association between gut microbiota and Alzheimer's disease is also related to the central role of inflammation in the development and the course of Alzheimer's disease. So that's the intro. So then they go into the microbiome. They talk about microbiome, and it says good microbes can regulate digestive pH and in turn create a good protective barrier against infectious agents. So supporting the gut lining integrity, gut epithelial lining integrity, supporting good mucus production, which helps protect that gut lining. And they talk about just even some of the bugs. The most common ones are Bifidobacter and Lactobacillus strains. Bifido you lose as you age. Lacto are the most common. Both of these are the most common supplementally, but lacto are by far the most common. So yeah, gut microbiota in the brain. So it talks about gut microbiota in the brain, and again showing some pathways there. And I'm going to go to a picture here in a minute, so I'm skimming some of this. It does talk about the vagus nerve, how the vagus nerve serves as a link between the gut and the autonomic nervous system. The vagus ends to brainstem nuclei that receive and give signals from the gut to the brain. So the vagus nerve is an important part of this communication. Then Alzheimer's disease, then it goes into the role of inflammation. So neuroinflammation. A prolonged neuroinflammatory process has been shown to be the cause or consequence of some neurodegenerative diseases, including Alzheimer's disease. In particular, certain cytokines have a central role in neuroinflammation. So like interleukin 1 beta, interleukin 6, TNF alpha, these are all pro-inflammatory. TGF beta is anti-inflammatory, but when it goes too high, it can cause a lot of fibrosis and a lot of issues too, a lot of myeloid-derived suppressor cell activity, pumping out copious amounts of TGF beta. So yeah, and they're just going into the connection, that there is a lot of neuroinflammation associated with Alzheimer's disease. And then dysbiosis as an inducing factor. So that's where they kind of connect the two. So there's a couple different hypotheses here. Some theories have been based on a role of gut microbiota, have been proposed, including a direct action of these microbes. So that's theory number one, like microbial infection. Number two is indirect actions, antimicrobial protection, and the hygiene hypothesis. And then number three is the processes related to the aging of the immune system, or inflammaging, they call it, of more inflammation as you age. Yeah, that's common. And then they go through each of these. So I'm not going to go through them, but they talk about, some of the things that we see: H. pylori, chlamydia pneumoniae, Borrelia burgdorferi, that's Lyme disease. So these are things that are associated. Here's cytomegalovirus and varicella zoster, and they said those have loose, they've been associated, although the role of these viruses is not clear. Brain alterations caused by dysbiosis that can promote Alzheimer's disease can occur in many different ways. And so they're talking about, different things: brain-derived neurotrophic factors, serotonin, dopamine, different tryptophan metabolites that are neuroinflammatory. There's a ton of different possible mechanisms here. And what they're saying is that, from here to Chicago, I'm about 3 hours away from Chicago, but there's a lot of ways that I can get there. But that's the point, is that there's a lot of different ways that we can get there. But what they're showing is that, hey, there is a connection. There is a way that these two are linked. Yeah. Age-related, hygiene. Let's go down to this picture, though. NMDA receptor, some of these things it's hard for me to skim past them. They catch my eye. So, this picture, brain, gut. Over on the left, we have good probiotics. On the right, we have bad dysbiosis. So this says it's a schematic representation of the role of microbiotic gut-brain axis in Alzheimer's disease. Good bacteria probiotics are capable to stabilize digestive pH, reduce inflammation, and increase neuroprotective molecules such as BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. BDNF is like pouring Miracle-Gro in the brain, and it supports neurogenesis in some areas and synaptogenesis of it's really great stuff. And exercise raises it. Lion's mane is a great supplement that raises it, but yeah, BDNF is really good. These effects lead to improved cognition and reduced amyloid beta plaque formation in animal models. In contrast, impaired microbiome with dysbiosis can induce neuroinflammation and reduce the expression of BDNF and NMDA receptor, which is like a glutamate neuroexcitatory thing that can lead to neuroinflammation and kind of some like kynurenine stuff and etc. That leads to cognitive impairment, mood disorders, and higher levels of serum amyloid beta. And antibiotics, here's the kicker, antibiotics, by altering or affecting gut microbiotic composition, interact with this circuit and produce different effects depending on their target. This isn't saying also that antibiotics are good or that they're bad. It's just saying that, hey, they have an effect. And oftentimes it is bad, but it's not saying that because we don't know that. And what they go into down here is even some of these antibiotics, some of the studies that they've been used in and what they did. So like this one, let's see, is in mice and rats, but it caused memory deficits. This one in rats caused increased anxiety and memory deficits. This one in humans reduced their consciousness, caused myoclonus and confusion. Now, down here, we've got like amoxicillin in humans. It improved cognition. And so, again, there's a lot of theories to that. What was it killing? Was it reducing something in the brain? Was it targeting something like H. pylori or chlamydia pneumoniae or Borrelia that was maybe affecting it? Down here in doxycycline, doxy is commonly used in Lyme and Borrelia. So if you take doxy and your cognition improves, were we hitting Lyme? I have no idea. That's total speculation. But again, it begs the question. This is how science happens. It begs the question, and then the next thing that gets studied is a little bit more specific and a little bit more specific and a little bit more specific. So again, I think that this paper is really cool and is really good, but it just shows that there is a connection. Antibiotics, gut microbiome, and Alzheimer's disease. And again, if you follow this channel for very long, you're going to see that, gosh, in the scientific literature, there's an association with a lot of different things with the microbiome. Microbiome is very, 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 very important. And again, clinically, we see it with brain stuff all the time. I see it with brain fog. I see it with anxiety. I see it with depression. And we see it not only as an associative factor, of like somebody has anxiety and they also have gut issues, and one is linked to the other. But we also see it as a therapeutic issue by addressing the gut, we will see symptoms, neurologic symptoms, go away. Meaning anxiety, depression, behavior-related things or mood-related things, but also brain fog, cognition, things like that. So really cool paper here. Hope that was helpful.